You are probably making more money today than you were 5 years ago. You have the better job title, you moved to a nicer neighborhood, and from the outside it looks like you are finally winning. But behind closed doors, a very different reality is playing out. You feel more trapped, more stressed, and more financially exhausted than you did back when you were practically broke. When you are young and earning nothing, being broke is just a mathematical reality. You accept it as part of the journey. But when you are making a professional salary, driving a premium car, and wearing clothes that signal success, feeling broke is a deeply isolating psychological burden. You cannot complain to your friends because they think you are doing great. You cannot tell your family you are struggling because you are supposed to be the successful one. You are forced to constantly maintain a character. You are managing a facade. This is the defining paradox of the modern middle class. We have been fundamentally conditioned to believe that as we move up in the world, our lives should immediately look upgraded. Society tells us that success is an aesthetic. It is something you must display to prove your worth. The moment you get a promotion, the immediate expectation is that you will trade in your reliable older vehicle for something with a luxury badge. When your salary bumps up, you are supposed to move out of the modest apartment and sign a lease in the trendy part of town. You are expected to upgrade your weekend habits, your vacations, and the restaurants you visit, all to mathematically match your new age or your new title. But this relentless pursuit of the aesthetic of success is a meticulously designed trap. You are taking the hard-earned capital that could be used to buy your actual freedom, and you are using it to rent a fake image of stability. You are spending your real peace of mind to purchase the appearance of having it all together. And the most dangerous part is that everyone around you is doing the exact same thing, which normalizes the insanity. You look at your peers and think, well, they drive that car and live in that zip code, so I should be able to afford it too. What you do not see is that they are quietly drowning in the exact same debt and anxiety that you are. Some of the most durable wealth builders in history have always operated on a completely different frequency. They understood that visible status is not the same thing as actual security. They kept their lives simpler than the market expected, protected their capital from the pressure to perform wealth for other people, and treated restraint as a source of strength rather than embarrassment. That is not a quirky habit. It is a serious defensive strategy against the trap of modern consumption. The basic law is simple. Wealth is rarely what you can see. More often, wealth is what remains unspent. Wealth is the car not purchased. It is the expensive dinner skipped. It is the luxury watch left in the store window. Wealth is the quiet accumulation of unspent resources that give you options, flexibility, and absolute autonomy over your own time. When you spend money to look wealthy, you are literally destroying the exact capital you need to actually become wealthy. You are confusing the performance of success with the reality of absolute security. The modern economy profits massively from this confusion. Entire industries are built on your deeply human desire to feel respected and admired by your peers. Modern consumer culture thrives when you feel slightly inadequate, because that insecurity makes it easier to finance a lifestyle that keeps you tied to a paycheck. If you are deeply in debt trying to look successful, you are a compliant, obedient worker. You cannot rock the boat. You cannot take a sabbatical to figure out what you actually want to do. You cannot afford to take a risk on a new business. Without realizing it, your premium possessions have quietly become your prison guards. The cost of trying to look successful goes far beyond the monthly payments on your credit card or auto loan. It bleeds into your psychology, your career trajectory, and your most important relationships. It strips away your leverage and forces you to make everyday decisions from a place of quiet desperation rather than a place of strength. Today we are going to look behind the curtain of this modern facade. We are going to break down the 5 quiet, completely invisible costs of trying to look successful, the hidden taxes that most ordinary people pay every single month without ever noticing. We will explore how upgrading your life to fit an aesthetic is quietly stealing your professional courage, destroying your financial margin, and locking you into a cycle of permanent maintenance. More importantly, we will discuss how letting go of the need to look successful is the ultimate cheat code for the working class. It is the first most critical step to stepping off the exhausting treadmill of appearances and building a foundation of actual unshakable wealth. If you have ever felt like you are doing everything right but still getting nowhere, it is time to stop calculating your income and start calculating the invisible costs of your image. The first quiet cost of trying to look successful is not a line item you will ever find on a monthly budget or a bank statement. It is completely invisible to your accountant, but it dictates the entire trajectory of your working life. That cost is the loss of your professional courage. To understand this, we first have to define what professional courage actually is. It is not about being aggressive or loud in a boardroom. True professional courage is simply the ability to say no. to negotiate without fear and to walk away from a bad situation. When you start earning a good professional salary, the first thing society silently pressures you to do is upgrade your aesthetic. You lease the luxury European sedan, you move into the modern high-rise apartment with the premium amenities, and you buy the expensive wardrobe that fits your new corporate title. You tell yourself that you are simply rewarding yourself for your hard work and long hours. But what you are actually doing is drastically raising your baseline operating cost. You are systematically increasing your monthly burn rate. This elevated burn rate silently destroys your leverage in the marketplace. In the professional world, leverage is simply a matter of who needs whom more. When your monthly overhead is $5,000 or $6,000 just to maintain the illusion of an upper middle class lifestyle, you absolutely desperately need your next paycheck. You cannot afford even a single month's gap in your income. Let us look at a highly realistic Monday morning in a corporate office. You are sitting in a meeting and your manager makes an entirely unreasonable demand. Perhaps they ask you to work through the weekend for the third week in a row, or perhaps they cross a clear line of professional respect. If you had zero consumer debt and a very low overhead, you would have the courage to calmly set a boundary. You would have the power to look them in the eye and say, "No, I cannot do that, and I will not be spoken to that way." But you do not say that. You swallow your pride, you force a polite smile, and you agree to give up another weekend with your family. Why? Because in the back of your mind, a terrifying quiet calculator is always running. You remember the $700 luxury car payment that is automatically drafted on the 15th. You remember the massive rent or mortgage payment due on the 1st. You remember the credit card bill holding the remaining balance of your last aesthetically pleasing vacation. You realize, in that split second of hesitation, that you are not in a position to negotiate. You are a hostage. And the most tragic part of this dynamic is that you are a hostage to your own premium possessions. That beautiful, expensive car parked downstairs in the employee lot is not a symbol of your financial freedom. It is the exact mathematical reason why you have to endure disrespect on the third floor of your office building. Employers and massive corporations implicitly understand this dynamic, even if it is never spoken out loud. They know that a workforce drowning in high-end consumer debt and lifestyle obligations is a highly compliant, obedient workforce. When employees are financially stretched to the absolute limit just trying to look successful, they will tolerate toxic work environments. They will accept stagnant wages and pass over promotions that require taking a risk. They will never rock the boat or threaten to walk away because the financial terror of losing that monthly deposit is simply too great. This profound lack of courage bleeds into your long-term career trajectory as well. True wealth is rarely built by playing it completely safe in a cubicle for 40 years. It is often built by taking calculated asymmetric risks. It is built by having the freedom to take a temporary pay cut to join a highly promising startup. It is built by taking 6 months off to pivot industries and learn a highly lucrative new skill, or by finally launching the independent business you have been dreaming about for a decade. But taking a calculated risk requires a safety net. Risk requires financial margin. When you spend every single dollar of your disposable income on maintaining a premium, successful aesthetic, you completely strip away your own safety net. You lock yourself into the safe, predictable, and often miserable path. You cannot take a chance on a new, exciting venture because the leasing office for your luxury apartment does not care about your dreams or your potential. They only care about the rent. Contrast this highly stressed reality with someone who consciously chooses to live far below their means. Imagine a worker who drives a paid-off 10-year-old vehicle, lives in a modest, affordable apartment, and aggressively saves half of their income. From the outside, walking down the street, they do not look like a traditional success story. They look completely ordinary. They might even look a little bit behind. But internally, they possess a superpower that the executive in the designer suit does not have. They possess the absolute power of no. Because their overhead is so incredibly low, they do not operate their career from a place of chronic fear. If a job environment becomes toxic, they can simply pack up their desk, hand in their resignation, and walk away without a second thought. They have 12 months of living expenses sitting quietly in a bank account. They can negotiate salary increases and boundaries from a position of absolute unshakable strength because they genuinely do not need the company's money to survive tomorrow. This is the profound foundational difference between the mindset of the middle class and the mindset of true wealth builders. The middle class constantly trades their future options for immediate objects. They buy the nicer driveway, the premium leather seats, and the brand name watch, but they pay for those things with their own autonomy. The wealthy, on the other hand, aggressively buy options. They value their freedom of movement and their peace of mind infinitely more than they value the passing opinions of strangers at a traffic light. If you want to reclaim your professional courage, you have to fundamentally change how you view your monthly expenses. You have to realize that every single time you sign up for a new luxury subscription, a higher car payment, or a more expensive mortgage to impress your peers, you are voluntarily putting on a pair of golden handcuffs. You are handing your employer, your clients, and the corporate system more and more leverage over your daily life. You must stop confusing the aesthetic of success with the reality of freedom. True financial power is incredibly quiet. It is the ability to look a demanding boss in the eye and know with absolute mathematical certainty that you and your family will be perfectly fine if they fire you today. That quiet, unshakable confidence is the greatest career asset you can ever build, but you cannot buy it at a luxury dealership or a high-end boutique. You build it by keeping your overhead low, killing your ego, and aggressively protecting your ultimate right to walk away. The second quiet cost of trying to look successful is the complete and total evaporation of your margin. To truly understand why this is so destructive, we have to borrow a concept from engineering. In engineering, margin is the empty space built into a system to absorb sudden shocks. If a bridge is designed to hold 10,000 tons of weight, the engineers do not build it to hold exactly 10,000 tons. They build it to hold 50,000 tons. That massive gap between the expected load and the breaking point is the margin of safety. It is the invisible buffer that prevents the bridge from collapsing when a completely unexpected storm hits. In your personal financial life, margin works exactly the same way. It is the breathing room between your current income and your baseline survival number. It is the distance between you and absolute financial disaster. But when your primary goal is to look successful to the outside world, you systematically destroy this exact breathing room. The aesthetic of success is incredibly expensive to maintain, and to keep the illusion going, you are almost always forced to spend right up to the absolute edge of your monthly income. You see this dynamic play out across every income bracket. When a person makes $50,000 a year, they tend to spend $49,000. But when that same person gets a massive promotion and starts making $120,000 a year, the margin does not increase. They simply upgrade their life to fit the new income. They lease the nicer car, they move into the more expensive zip code, and they start taking the premium vacations. Suddenly, they are making $120,000, but they are spending $118,000. The numbers have gotten much larger, but the margin has remained exactly the same, practically zero. From the outside, this person looks like they have completely mastered the game of life. Their Instagram feed is flawless, their driveway looks impressive, and their coworkers assume they are incredibly secure. But from the inside, the reality is a completely different, highly stressful experience. When you have zero financial margin, you are constantly playing a terrifying game of mental gymnastics. You know this feeling intimately if you have ever lived it. It is the absurd paradox of pulling up to a premium grocery store in a $50,000 vehicle. But as you walk down the aisles, you are secretly doing anxious mental math in your head. You are quietly checking your banking application on your phone while standing in the checkout line, silently praying that the total cost of the groceries does not trigger an overdraft before your next paycheck clears on Friday. You are managing an incredibly sophisticated facade of wealth while internally panicking over the price of organic chicken. When you eliminate your margin to look successful, you fundamentally change how the universe interacts with you. Life is inherently unpredictable. Cars break down, roofs leak, children get sick, and companies unexpectedly lay people off. These events are mathematically guaranteed to happen to everyone over a long enough timeline. But how you experience these events depends entirely on your margin. If you have a thick, boring cushion of unspent cash sitting in a bank account, a flat tire on a Tuesday morning is simply a mild inconvenience. You call a tow truck, you pay the $500 for a new tire, and you go on with your week. Your heart rate barely elevates. But if you have spent all your margin on looking successful, that exact same flat tire is no longer an inconvenience. It is a full-blown catastrophic crisis because the money is not there. A $500 emergency sets off a domino effect of panic. You have to put the repair on a high-interest credit card that is already near its limit. You have to call your spouse and frantically figure out which bill you can delay paying this month. You have to cancel your weekend plans, and you spend the next 3 days vibrating with stress. By prioritizing the aesthetic of wealth over the reality of cash, you have turned a boring everyday mechanical failure into an emotional and financial emergency. You have stripped away your own shock absorbers. The true quiet cost of this is what I call the anxiety tax. Human beings were not biologically designed to operate at 99% capacity all the time. When you live right at the edge of your income to maintain a successful image, your nervous system is constantly humming with low-grade fear. You might not even consciously realize it is there during the day, but it is the reason you wake up at 3 in the morning staring at the ceiling. It is the reason your jaw is clenched while you are driving to a job you do not even like. You are subconsciously aware that your entire carefully curated lifestyle is a house of cards. You know that you are only one bad medical diagnosis or one corporate restructuring away from the entire facade collapsing. That chronic humming anxiety destroys your sleep, it shortens your temper with your children, and it heavily degrades your physical health over a decade. It is a massive, invisible tax that you pay every single day for the privilege of looking successful to people who are too busy worrying about their own bills to actually notice you. The modern marketplace often encourages this exact state of existence. It normalizes zero margin. It tells you that if you have room on your credit card, you can afford the purchase. It breaks massive luxury purchases into easy, bite-sized monthly payments so you do not feel the immediate pain of losing the capital. The system wants you operating without a buffer because a person without a buffer is highly dependent on the system. Escaping this trap requires a radical shift in what you consider to be a luxury. Society tells you that a luxury is a designer watch or a first-class ticket. But the ultimate luxury in the modern world is actually invisible. It is a thick, unglamorous, boring layer of financial margin. It is the profound peace of mind that comes from knowing you could lose your job tomorrow and your family would not have to change a single thing about their daily lives for 6 months. True success is not an aesthetic you wear to impress strangers. It is the ability to sleep perfectly soundly through an economic recession. But to buy that level of peace, you have to be willing to look a little less successful today. You have to be willing to step back, swallow your pride, and intentionally live below your means so you can rebuild the invisible shock absorbers that the modern world so desperately wants you to throw away. The third quiet cost of trying to look successful is what I call the friction of maintenance. When we decide to upgrade our lifestyle to match our new income, our brains play a very specific, dangerous mathematical trick on us. We only calculate the upfront purchase price or the flat monthly payment. When you lease the premium vehicle, you think the cost is simply $600 a month. When you rent the luxury apartment with the floor-to-ceiling windows, you think the cost is simply the $2,000 you pay on the first of the month. But this is a fundamental illusion of ownership. What you are actually doing is buying a ticket into a premium ecosystem, and everything inside that ecosystem is exponentially more expensive. Things do not just cost money to acquire, they cost time, energy, and premium fees to maintain. Let us look at the luxury car. Because it has a luxury badge, it requires premium gasoline. The oil changes require specialized synthetic oil that costs 3 times as much as a standard vehicle. When you inevitably get a flat tire, you discover that the low-profile performance tires cost $400 each to replace. The insurance premiums are significantly higher because the imported parts are so expensive to fix. You did not just sign up for a higher car payment, you signed up for a permanent mandatory subscription to premium operating costs. You elevated your entire baseline of daily friction. The exact same trap applies to where you live. Society tells you that success means moving into a massive house or a sprawling high-end apartment. So you upgrade from a modest 1,000 square foot space to a 3,000 square foot home with a manicured lawn and a swimming pool. From the street, it looks like an absolute triumph. But the hidden friction is immediate. First, you have to heat and cool 3,000 square feet of empty air. Then you realize the house looks painfully empty, so you have to buy 3 times as much furniture, expensive rugs, and decor just to make it look normal and lived in. But the most devastating cost of this upgrade is not financial, it is the silent theft of your time. You unknowingly become an unpaid property manager for your own lifestyle. A massive house requires hours of cleaning and organizing every single week. A manicured lawn requires endless mowing, weeding, edging, and fertilizing. A swimming pool requires constant chemical balancing, skimming, and expensive pump maintenance. Instead of waking up on a Saturday morning and having the absolute freedom to read a book, take your kids to the park, or simply rest your exhausted mind, you are handed a massive chore list. You spend your entire weekend maintaining the aesthetic of your success. Your weekend is no longer yours, it belongs to the objects you purchased. Beyond the physical time and the financial drain, there is a heavy, invisible psychological cost. Every single object you own to look successful owns a little piece of your mental bandwidth. This is the cognitive load of luxury. When you drive a heavily depreciating standard commuter car, you do not care if someone parks a little too close to you at the grocery store. A tiny scratch on the door is completely meaningless. But when you drive a $70,000 luxury vehicle that you are struggling to afford, you are hyper aware of everything around it. You park at the absolute back of the parking lot. You stress about the weather. You worry about spilling coffee on the delicate leather interior. The exact same anxiety applies to your expensive clothes, your high-end furniture, and your pristine white rugs. You cannot truly relax in your own home because you are terrified of staining the aesthetic. You yell at your children for playing too roughly near the fragile, expensive decor you bought to impress guests who only visit twice a year. The things that were supposed to make you feel like a master of your universe have actually turned you into a highly anxious servant. You are serving your possessions. They are not serving you. This is why true capital builders aggressively avoid high-maintenance aesthetics. They understand that their most valuable asset is not their driveway. It is their time, their focus, and their mental clarity. They actively choose low-friction environments. A modest, reliable vehicle requires zero mental bandwidth. A reasonably sized, highly functional home can be cleaned in a single hour, leaving the entire weekend open for actual living, deep thinking, or building a side business. They absolutely refuse to trade their precious free time for the tedious, never-ending labor of maintaining a facade. Think about the massive opportunity cost of this friction. What could you accomplish if you took back the 10 hours a week you spend washing the premium car, cleaning the massive house, and organizing the endless piles of expensive consumer goods? What if that time was spent sleeping, recovering from a highly stressful week, or learning a valuable skill that could double your earning power? The effort you spend maintaining the illusion of wealth is the exact effort required to build actual wealth, but you cannot do both. You only have a finite amount of energy. Before you upgrade any part of your lifestyle, you have to run a strict calculation on the friction of maintenance. You must ask yourself, how much of my weekend will this object demand? How much mental energy will I spend worrying about it getting scratched, broken, or stained? Will this purchase serve my freedom, or will I become its unpaid manager? If looking successful requires a part-time job's worth of weekend labor and chronic anxiety, it is not success. It is voluntary servitude, beautifully wrapped in a shiny, expensive package. The fourth quiet cost of trying to look successful is one of the most psychologically draining phenomena in modern life. I call it the social escalation trap. When you decide to upgrade your lifestyle, you do not just change your possessions. You fundamentally change your physical and social environment. When you lease the premium car, move into the luxury high-rise, and start wearing the expensive labels, you send out a highly specific, visible signal to the world, and naturally, that signal attracts peers who are playing the exact same game of appearances. Suddenly, without even realizing it, you find yourself embedded in a social circle where the baseline aesthetic of success is incredibly high, and this is where the quiet cost begins to compound. The social expectations around you rapidly inflate. Hanging out on a Friday night is no longer a casual, inexpensive gathering at someone's house. It becomes a reservation at a high-end restaurant with a dress code. Weekend activities shift from a walk in the park to expensive rounds of golf, premium cocktail bars, and exclusive ticketed events. You are suddenly expected to participate in a lifestyle that mathematically requires a massive, unceasing flow of cash. Let us look at the classic, terrifying reality of the group dinner. You are invited to a trendy restaurant with your new successful-looking peers. You sit down, and you immediately notice that the menu does not even have dollar signs next to the items. You quietly decide to order the cheapest chicken dish and a glass of tap water because you know your bank account is already stretched to the limit this month. But then the social escalation begins. Someone orders 3 expensive appetizers for the table to share. Another person orders 2 bottles of premium wine. Dessert is ordered, and then the moment of absolute dread arrives. The waiter brings the check, drops it in the middle of the table, and someone cheerfully announces, "Let's just split it evenly. It's easier for everyone." Your stomach completely drops. Your personal meal costs $30, but your portion of the split check is $180. In that critical moment, you have a choice. You could speak up, calculate your exact portion, and protect your financial margin, but you do not. Because saying the words, "I cannot afford that," feels like a catastrophic social failure. It feels like a direct violation of the successful character you have spent so much time and money building. If you are wearing a designer watch and holding the keys to a luxury sedan, you cannot admit that a dinner bill is causing you internal panic. So you swallow your anxiety, you force a smile, you hand over your credit card, and you silently finance a meal you did not even want. This is the ego tax. It is the premium fee you pay simply to keep your seat at a table you do not even want to be sitting at. This ego tax extends far beyond restaurant bills. It bleeds into every aspect of your social calendar. You are suddenly added to a group text message planning a destination bachelor party or a week-long luxury vacation in a foreign country. Everyone in the chat is enthusiastically agreeing to a $3,000 itinerary. You are staring at your phone, vibrating with stress, knowing that you have zero room on your credit cards for this trip. But the pressure of social conformity is a massive, crushing weight. You do not want to be the only person who opts out. You do not want to look like the one who is falling behind. So you click agree and you spend the next 6 months paying off a vacation that you spent entirely feeling anxious and resentful. You are expected to chip in $100 for a pricey group gift for an acquaintance you barely know. You are expected to attend lavish weddings and buy expensive registry items, all to flawlessly match the aesthetic of the group. The tragic irony of the social escalation trap is that you are desperately performing for an audience of people who are likely doing the exact same thing. Look around that expensive dinner table. Statistically, half of the people sitting there are internally sweating over the bill just as much as you are. They are also putting it on a credit card. They are also playing the game. You are caught in a bizarre, unspoken hostage situation where all the hostages are holding each other captive through the fear of looking broke. You are paying a massive recurring premium to maintain relationships that are fundamentally based on a shared illusion. These are not deep, meaningful friendships grounded in mutual support. They are aesthetic partnerships. If a relationship requires a minimum monthly spend to maintain, it is not a friendship, it is a subscription service. And it is a subscription service that is actively destroying your ability to build actual wealth. To step off this exhausting social treadmill, you have to realize that saying no is not a sign of failure. It is the ultimate sign of financial maturity. You must learn to look people in the eye and calmly say, that is not in my budget right now, or I am focusing on some other financial goals, so I am going to pass on dinner. When you start saying those words, something incredibly liberating happens. Yes, some people will stop inviting you out, but those people were never your friends. They were simply your aesthetic co-stars. The people who genuinely care about you will gladly come over to your apartment, sit on your couch, and drink a $2 cup of coffee with you. By aggressively cutting out the ego tax, you instantly recover thousands of dollars a year, and you free yourself from the exhausting, crushing weight of performing for an audience that never truly cared in the first place. The fifth and final quiet cost of trying to look successful is the most mathematically devastating of them all. It is the silent theft of your compounding freedom. When you decide to upgrade your lifestyle to match an aesthetic of wealth, you tend to look at the cost purely in terms of present-day dollars. You look at a premium car lease and tell yourself it only costs $600 a month. You look at a luxury apartment upgrade and justify the extra $1,000 a month because you can technically afford to make the payment with your current salary. But this is a catastrophic misunderstanding of how money actually works over time. The dollars you are spending today to look successful are not just regular static pieces of paper. They are the exact seed capital required to buy your permanent future freedom. When you spend that money on a depreciating asset just to impress the people around you, you are not simply losing the initial purchase price. You are burning the entire mathematical force of compounding that those specific dollars possessed. To truly grasp the magnitude of this theft, you have to fundamentally change how you view a single dollar. Ordinary people view a dollar as a coupon to be exchanged for a good or a service right now. But true wealth builders view every single dollar as a seed. If you plant a seed and leave it alone in the soil, it will eventually grow into an orchard that feeds you for the rest of your life. But when you spend that dollar on a luxury watch or a premium car lease, you are literally eating the seed. You do not just lose that one seed today, you completely destroy the orchard that it was mathematically destined to become decades from now. Let us look closely at the reality of that $600 a month car lease. You sign the paperwork because you want to feel respected when you pull up to the office, and you want to look successful in traffic. For the next 5 years, you pay that $600 every single month without fail. That is $36,000 in total capital leaving your system. But let us look at the invisible cost. If you had driven a paid-off, reliable older car and simply invested that $600 a month into a standard index fund for those same 5 years, and then just left it alone to compound for the next 25 years, that money would have grown into hundreds of thousands of dollars. You did not just pay $36,000 for a car, you traded away a massive chunk of your future wealth. You traded away the ability to retire a half-decade earlier. You gave up the freedom to pay for your child's college education in cash. You sacrificed the option to walk away from a miserable job in your 50s. And what did you get in return for that massive sacrifice? You got the temporary admiration of complete strangers at a red light. Strangers who do not know your name, do not care about your family, and will forget you exist the moment the light turns green. This is the profound tragedy of the modern middle class. Millions of hardworking people are literally financing the illusion of wealth by selling off the reality of their future independence. They are terrified of looking ordinary today, so they guarantee that they will be financially trapped tomorrow. Every time you upgrade your lifestyle to project an image of success, you are taking a massive chunk of your future time and handing it directly over to a bank or a luxury brand. You are buying a shiny leather-wrapped chain that forces you to stay at your desk, answering emails for another 5, 10, or 15 years. When you realize what is actually happening beneath the surface, the desire to look successful starts to feel incredibly hollow. The vanity loses its appeal entirely. You look at a luxury car and you no longer see a symbol of success. You see a massive delay in your retirement. You look at a massive, heavily mortgaged house and you do not see a palace. You see a 30-year prison sentence that demands your physical labor every single month. You begin to understand that the people who are aggressively flashing their wealth are usually the ones who are the most hopelessly trapped by it. True freedom is not found in the things you can show off to your neighbors. True freedom is found in the quiet, unglamorous math of compounding. It is found in the money you did not spend sitting silently in an investment account, multiplying day after day, year after year, completely independent of your physical labor. That compounded capital is the only thing in the modern world that can actually buy back your time. It is the only thing that can purchase your Tuesday mornings, your physical health, and your ultimate autonomy. But to harness that power, you have to stop stealing from your future self. You have to stop raiding your own seed capital to fund a theatrical performance for people who do not actually care about you. You must make a definitive, agonizing choice between looking rich today and actually being free tomorrow. You cannot have both. The math simply does not allow it. The moment you decide that your future freedom is infinitely more valuable than your current aesthetic, the theft stops, the bleeding ends, and the quiet, unstoppable force of compounding finally begins working for you instead of against you. We have spent this entire time looking beneath the surface of the modern aesthetic of wealth. We have unmasked the 5 quiet, invisible costs that are silently stealing your freedom. The loss of your professional courage, the total evaporation of your financial margin, the exhausting friction of permanent maintenance, the psychological drain of the social escalation trap, and the ultimate tragedy of robbing your own compounding future. When you see all of these hidden taxes laid out in front of you, the shiny appeal of the modern lifestyle begins to fade. The designer clothes, the luxury cars, and the massive houses stop looking like trophies, and they start looking exactly like what they really are: incredibly expensive, highly restrictive chains. At some point in your adult life, if you want to escape the treadmill of the middle class, you have to make a profound, highly intentional choice. You have to decide which of 2 distinct realities you actually want to inhabit. You can choose to be broke, highly stressed, and widely admired by strangers, or you can choose to be quietly wealthy, deeply secure, and completely unbothered by the opinions of others. You cannot have both. The mathematics of ordinary income simply will not allow it. You must consciously choose to step away from the performance. We have been conditioned to believe that success has to be loud. We think it needs to be broadcasted, photographed, and validated by the people around us. But true success is incredibly, beautifully quiet. It is not an aesthetic you wear on your wrist or park in your driveway. True success looks like an older, perfectly reliable, paid-off vehicle that requires absolutely 0 monthly mental bandwidth. It looks like politely passing on the expensive group dinner and feeling absolutely no shame about it. It looks like a modest, highly functional home that you can clean in an hour, leaving your entire weekend completely free to actually live your life. Most importantly, true success feels entirely different. It is the profound physical relief of having 6 months of cash sitting silently in a boring bank account, allowing you to sleep perfectly soundly through an economic recession, a corporate layoff, or a sudden medical emergency. It is the absolute, unshakable confidence of walking into a negotiation with a demanding boss, knowing that you hold the ultimate power of walking away. That quiet leverage is the highest form of luxury available in the modern world, and it is a luxury that no luxury brand can ever sell you. To achieve this level of absolute freedom, you have to completely dismantle the illusion of your audience. You have to realize that you are exhausting yourself performing for a crowd that is not actually watching. The people you are trying so desperately to impress with your upgraded lifestyle are entirely consumed by their own financial anxieties. They are too busy calculating their own credit card limits and worrying about their own social status to genuinely care about the logo on your steering wheel. The moment you stop seeking their validation, you instantly reclaim thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours of your own precious life. I want to give you a deep, profound sense of permission today. Give yourself permission to downgrade your aesthetic so that you can radically upgrade your reality. Step off the competitive social treadmill. Stop playing a costly game where the only prize is more debt and higher stress. Let the people around you win the competition of appearances. Let them have the newer car. Let them have the bigger house. Let them take the glamorous debt-financed vacations. Smile, be happy for them, and quietly walk in the opposite direction. When you stop bleeding your capital into the friction of maintaining an image, everything in your life changes. Your stress levels will plummet. Your career decisions will be made from a place of supreme confidence rather than a place of quiet desperation. Your money will finally be allowed to stay in your own accounts, quietly compounding in the dark, building a fortress around your family. You do not need to look successful to be successful. The wealthiest, most secure, and most deeply content people in society are almost always the ones you would never notice walking down the street. They have mastered the ultimate financial cheat code. They stopped trying to look rich, and they decided to actually be free. Take back your margin. Take back your professional courage. Embrace the quiet, invisible reality of true wealth, and finally let time do the heavy lifting for your future. That's all. Thanks for watching.